The King's Avatar, Chapter 511, Audio Source, WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 511 Expert Commander. The battle ensuing on Yi Xiu's screen was a blur to Chen Guo's eyes. She could still see his status clearly. Lord Grimm's life was dancing on a blade's edge the entire time. This meant that the only thing Yi Xiu could do was survive longer than her chasing haze. It was hard to say if he would be able to escape or not. What should she do? Chen Guo was extremely worried. Whether she revived and rushed back or called for help, it would be too late now. Everything depended on Yi Xiu. Yi Xiu's normal lazy look often made Chen Guo grind her teeth in anger, but at this moment, she really wanted to see the look on his face. However, it wasn't there. He had an expression of concentration on his face. The sounds of rapid tapping and clicking continued to be produced by his two hands. The screen had already made Chen Guo feel dizzy. Now, even the sounds made her feel uneasy. In any case, she should try to do something. Chen Guo revived her chasing haze and ran in his direction. She didn't know if she would be able to arrive in time, nor did she know if she would be able to provide any help. She didn't want to sit there and do nothing. As she sprinted over like mad, Chen Guo glanced at Lord Grimm's coordinates and health from time to time. Yi Xiu was still trying to hang on. Chen Guo hated how she couldn't just teleport there. Even if she could only block attacks for him, it would be enough. Suddenly, Chen Guo realized the room had quieted down. Yi Xiu's rapid tapping and clicking ceased. Chen Guo was alarmed. She immediately turned her head, but discovered his screen was still colorful. Lord Grimm hadn't died. He was hiding behind a stone wall covered in moss. Ah, you escaped. Chen Guo was overjoyed at the good news, but then she saw Lord Grimm suddenly run forwards a bit. All sorts of bright effects from attacks could be seen exploding behind him. People were attacking his previous hiding place, but he had been able to run out in time. Not yet. Yi Xiu replied to Chen Guo's question. But being able to talk meant that the situation had become much better than before. She looked at Yi Xiu's current position, Milo Ancient Ruins. Milo Ancient Ruins was one of the level 55 leveling areas in the Heavenly Domain. The background lore described this place as the ruins of an ancient city, which had been destroyed 1,000 years ago by an earthquake and volcanic explosion. Most of it was already buried beneath the ground. The remnants, visible above ground, had been weathered by time, badly damaged and in pieces. Milo Ancient Ruins wasn't a large area because it wasn't a leveling area with many monsters. The surface remnants were only small portions of the ancient ruins. They were like a line, guiding players towards the real Milo Ancient City, which was buried underground. In the past, Milo Ancient City had been a huge 100-player dungeon, where countless players died. Chen Guo looked at Lord Grimm's level. He was level 54, but still need half a bar of experience before he would reach level 55. He wouldn't be able to suddenly reach level 55 and run into the dungeon to hide. Yi Xiu had Lord Grimm run here in order to take advantage of the terrain and shake off his pursuers. 20 players. Yi Xiu pushed the microphone on his headphones to the side and spoke to Chen Guo. He was afraid his pursuers would hear his voice and figure out his position. Right now, Lord Grimm was hiding in the corner of a stone room and was looking out from a small crack in the wall. Oh. It's just a guess, but it should be around there. Yi Xiu figured out the strength of his enemies while hiding and running. Who are they? Chen Guo asked. I don't know. That's not important right now. These players are all average in skill, but their commander is very troublesome. Yi Xiu said. Who's the commander? Chen Guo was astonished. To be able to make Yi Xiu feel pressure, this person must be at the pro level. I'm not sure. I haven't had the chance to see him. Yishu was helpless. He had been running for his life the entire time. Figuring out the enemy numbers was already impressive enough. Under the situation where the enemy commander was giving orders through text in a private chat, figuring out who the commander was among 20 people was nearly impossible. If I figure out who the commander is and kill him, the remaining subordinates will be easy enough, Yishu said. FCK. Right as Yishu finished speaking, he suddenly cursed out loud. He hastily tapped his keyboard and Lord Grim rolled out of the corner. Bang! Behind him, a hole suddenly appeared in the stone wall. Bits of gravel flew out into the corner. Only a sharpshooter's thunder snipe had that sort of penetration power. Bang! Following afterwards, an even louder sound erupted. A small mushroom cloud rose up in the corner of that room. A launcher had fired a heat-seeking missile into there. Several characters suddenly popped up in Lord Grim's line of sight. A berserker charged forward using colliding stab. The usage of this skill reflected Yishu's evaluation of their skill. Yishu simply leaped backwards and the berserker awkwardly stopped in front of Lord Grim. Colliding stab had reached the limits of its attack range. Yishu didn't give him a second chance to try again. Lord Grim knocked the berserker high into the air and flung him away. Another two players followed after the berserker, but how could they have known their ally would turn into their enemy? One of them jumped to the left while the other jumped to the right, but they soon discovered that not only had Lord Grim thrown the berserker at them, he had also lobbed a grenade. It was too late for them to dodge. The grenade exploded and all the three went tumbling through the air. Yishu didn't bother with these three anymore and immediately had Lord Grim turn around. He pointed his 1000-chance umbrella straight AEAD and fired rapidly. AEAD. At a small intersection, a thief was laying a trap down. When he saw the gun aimed at him, he hastily rolled to the side, but his trap had been hit by the gun. The trap sprung out of the ground and became useless. The thief was furious. When the Gatling gun finished firing, he wanted to jump out and show his fury. Suddenly, a bang sounded out from behind his butt and he was sent flying towards a pile of trash. While in the air, he turned his head and saw the scraps left behind by a mechanical seeker. However, he had no clue where it had come from. Lord Grim turned around and fired twice diagonally. A witch, who had been flying out, was hit down and the Spitfire who had jumped onto the roof went stumbling backwards. Then, the 1000-chance umbrella changed into a spear. He released a falling flower palm at the incoming striker and grappler and sent them flying backwards. These two were puzzled. Lord Grim had clearly fired in a different direction. WooshOurWorldAudio.com. How did he turn around so quickly and use a falling flower palm? In a single breath, he had attacked 8 characters. He just happened to have turned around in a circle too. Yishu saw an opening and immediately had Lord Grim charge through it. I don't think any of these are the commander. Yishu suddenly spoke. Chen Guo was afraid of bothering Yishu, so she hadn't said anything to him. She didn't think Yishu would be the one to speak. After a short pause, Chen Guo figured out Yishu's meaning. You're saying none of those 8 players are the commander? Yes. Yishu nodded his head. Or maybe this person is only good at commanding and doesn't have any actual battle skill. Chen Guo said. It's possible. Yishu didn't deny the possibility. Lord Grim rolled and jumped. He took notice of a narrow opening AEAD and headed towards it. Right when he was about to go through it, an ice wall suddenly appeared, blocking his path. 6 players closed in on him from behind. They didn't give Yishu any time to break the wall. Yishu looked left and right. There were 6 enemies on his right and 3 on the left. It was obvious which direction he should head. At this moment, he heard a whirring sound from above. It was an enemy mechanic's rotor wing. Two wintermelon-like objects spiraled towards Lord Grimm's head. The stomachs of these things split apart and bombs fell out. Lord Grimm twisted his body and rolled to the left. At the same time, he fired twice towards the two wintermelon-like objects. These wintermelon-like objects exploded like grenades, turning into two balls of charred metal. However, the air raid had just begun. A witch broke through the explosion and flung a lava flask at Lord Grimm's head. Yishu's Lord Grimm had already turned back around. He hadn't expected the enemy to hide such a move. Lord Grimm jumped up into the air. His thousand-chance umbrella transformed into a spear as he stabbed at the witch. Pooh! The circle swing connected with the witch and sent the witch smashing into the ground, but this time, Yishu had been a bit too slow and wasn't able to block the witch's lava flask. The lava flask shattered and the ground instantly turned into an ocean of lava. Right when Lord Grimm was about to plunge into the lava, the thousand-chance umbrella transformed into rotor wings and he quickly flew over the lava field. After flying over the lava field, he charged towards the three on the left. The warlock among them immediately formed a black ball of light with his hands. The warlock positioned the curse arrow high up and didn't charge it up. The black ball shot out and transformed into a rain of countless black arrows. Yishu had no way of dodging the attack by flying up and could only drop back down, but if he were to move any farther downwards, his feet would hit the ground. He might as well just run, so Yishu cancelled the rotor wings and had Lord Grimm land on the ground. Following afterwards, he used the shadow clone technique and instantly teleported in front of the warlock. The back throw input had already been entered, and so Lord Grimm's two hands shot towards the warlock. At the same time, Yishu saw the warlock's face covered by his mantle. It was a rough male face with a messy beard. With one look, he could tell it wasn't a system-generated face but a scan of a real-life photo. "Old Way," Yishu shouted out in astonishment. End chapter.
Chapter 512, Old God. F***ck, why are you so troublesome? Hurry up and die so I can get my 500, the warlock, who Yishu called Old Way, responded in an extremely loud voice. Chen Guo could even hear his voice from Yishu's headphones clearly. His hands didn't stop moving either. The warlock jumped backwards. He had predicted Yishu would use a back throw and dodged it. You're still looking at that 500? Did you not see the statement? Yishu said, while continuing to attack. Lord Grimm shook the myriad manifestation umbrella and it transformed into a spear shooting towards the warlock. Statement? What statement? The warlock asked. The bounty has already been withdrawn, Yishu told him. F***ck, that happened? Then all of the work this senior did was for nothing? Practicing the team's coordination and studying your work and rest schedule? The warlock shouted. Not my problem. Why didn't you start a day or two earlier? They only just withdrew it, Yishu said. You're not trying to trick me, are you? What statement? Send it to me, the warlock yelled. 1 sec, Yishu said. Chen Guo was stunned. Could everything that had happened today have just been an accident? Who the heck was this guy? Chen Guo was just about to ask, when she suddenly discovered that while Yishu should be finding a link to send to him, he didn't even have a web browser open. However, he had stopped controlling his character. Lord Grimm stood there, not moving. You. Chen Guo only said one word, when a shadow suddenly appeared behind Lord Grimm. The shadow lifted its hands and cut downwards in a cold arc. Yishu immediately input a string of commands. Lord Grimm stepped to the side and turned around, allowing Chen Guo to get a glimpse of the attacker. The shadow was an assassin, holding a dagger. The assassin looked like a wild tiger, undaunted by dangers. Chen Guo couldn't help but tremble. She recognized this skill, life-risking strike. Blood for blood. Life for life. Life-risking strike didn't consume mana, but rather used health. The assassin's health burned like mana for a final strike. As long as it hit, the health spent would do true damage to the opponent, ignoring all defenses. In other words, even if it were a weaponless assassin, as long as he used life-risking strike, he would guarantee that would do damage proportional to the amount of health he burned. The amount of health that could be burned depended on the skill's level. The higher the skill level was, the more health could be burned. The max-leveled skill had no limit to the amount of health that could be burned. One could even burn one's health to zero. However, once the skill ended, the assassin would certainly die. Life-risking strike could be an instant kill move. It was the only skill in Glory that could kill a full health character in one hit. Using one's own life in exchange for damage was fair. The only thing which limited the amount of damage this strike did, was the assassin's own health. If one saw an assassin equipped with stamina-increasing equipment, then one would be extremely wary of this move. These types of assassins stacked health in order to fully utilize this life-risking strike. Assassins weren't a class with high stamina, so they didn't have much health. After an assassin burned his health, he would just be an extremely weakened cloth armor class, but if an assassin stacked stamina, any class would have to be careful against them. This assassin suddenly used life-risking strike. Lord Grimm had a balanced growth, so while he didn't have a lot of health, he didn't have too little either. However, his level was low and his equipment were relatively weak. If this attack had hit, the true damage trading health for health was one thing. The skills-based damage was already painful enough for Lord Grimm. In addition, Lord Grimm wasn't at full health right now. An instant kill wouldn't have been hard for this assassin to achieve. Even though Lord Grimm stepped to the side, this assassin had clearly burned a lot of health. Lord Grimm had stepped to the side, but the assassin's quick movements from using this life-risking strike made it so Lord Grimm's sidestep not only did not widen the distance between them, but closed the distance. With Lord Grimm's stats, dodging this life-risking strike was clearly too difficult. Chen Guo thought Lord Grimm would certainly die from this strike. Suddenly, a dark light flashed, turning into a six-pointed star. A green goblin popped out from the six-pointed star right in between Lord Grimm and the assassin. The poor little goblin didn't even have time to understand the situation when it made a shrill cry. The assassin's life-risking strike smashed into its body. F***CKKK. The assassin also cried out. The poor goblin had already exploded into a bloody corpse, but the assassin didn't feel sorry for the goblin at all. The life-risking strike, which he had burned almost all of his health for, had struck a weak little house pet. How could he not mourn? After life-risking strike was used, potions couldn't be used for a certain amount of time and the user wouldn't be able to receive any healing spells during this time either. Otherwise, if one could chug potions and receive help from a cleric, there wouldn't be any risk involved in using this skill. Risking one's life meant no regrets. When Jingke attempted an assassination on Ying Zheng, he hadn't left a path for his retreat. Minnesota. Even that didn't hit. Is there still any justice in this world? The warlock roared in fury. Nonsense. I was prepared for it, Yi Shu said, while attacking back at the assassin. The assassin had burned his own health in order to kill a measly green goblin. He was still filled with grief and wasn't able to react. Yi Shu seized this opportunity to give him a quick beating and killed the assassin. Chen Guo heard the two speaking to each other and became dumbstruck again. Both of them harbored evil intents. That warlock lied to Yi Shu saying he could leave, but had an assassin make a sneak attack. On the other hand, Yi Shu pretended to be fooled, but then took the chance to kill the enemy assassin. Neither of them were sincere, but in any case, it was the warlock who started it. In addition, the warlock had set up an ambush as soon as he went online. More importantly, Chen Guo was definitely on Yi Shu's side. Too despicable, Chen Guo moved closer to Yi Shu's headphones and shouted. Where'd this B***TCH come from? The warlock answered back without a hint of politeness. Ambushing us as soon as we log in, how low can you get? Chen Guo shouted. Ha 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 ha, you can remember this señor's name if you'd like. The warlock laughed. I'm not that shameless. If you've got the skill, 1v1 me, Chen Guo spat. Ha ha, are you hot? If you're hot, I can keep you company. If not, I don't have that sort of free time, the warlock responded. Cut the crap. Do you dare to 1v1 me? Chen Guo shouted. Ha ha, how fiery. How about you find a room and wait for me there? The warlock chuckled. His wording sounded very dirty, making Chen Guo stamp her feet in anger. When she looked at Yi Shu, she saw that he was still controlling Lord Grimm to have him break away from the trap. He also glanced at her as if he were looking at a dead person. "What's with you?" Chen Guo said. "Do you know who this person is?" Yi Shu asked her. "Who cares?" Chen Guo was so furious that she wasn't afraid of anyone. "His name is Wei Chen. Have you heard of his name before?" Yi Shu said. "I don't think so. Who is he?" Chen Guo heard Yi Shu give a serious introduction to him, so she calmed down a bit. She reckoned his background wouldn't be small. He was most likely a pro player. However, this name. Chen Guo tried to think if she had ever heard the name before, but she really had no idea. "He's already retired," Yi Shu said. "Oh, he probably retired a long time ago then," Chen Guo said. If he had retired a long time ago, it wouldn't be strange that she had no impression of his name. "Yes, before he retired, he was Team Blue Rain's captain and Swaksar's former owner," Yi Shu said. Ah, Chen Guo suddenly turned cold. Swaksar was the #1 warlock in Glory and was currently in the hands of Team Blue Rain's captain Yu Wenzhou. Chen Guo thought that this person would be a pro player, but she didn't think he would be a captain-level player. In the pro scene, the captain of the team was often the team's best player. Even if the captain wasn't, the captain would at least be at an all-star level, let alone a captain of a powerhouse like Blue Rain. "Why is he like a bandit?" Chen Guo couldn't help but say. "Compared to normal citizens, he's certainly a lot more crude. In those days, when we just entered Glory, he was already considered quite old. He retired after playing for only 2 years," Yi Shu said. "Is he very good?" Chen Guo said. "You know about Yu Wenzhou and Huang Shaoshan, right? He brought them up by himself. Their styles were pretty much inherited from him," Yi Shu said. "Disabled hands and a chatterbox?" Chen Guo asked. "Can't you think of any positive traits?" Yi Shu coughed blood. Chen Guo had clearly said that intentionally. She knew very well just how good Yu Wenzhou and Huang Shaoshan were. She just had a hard time imagining how such an immoral guy could bring up 2 top-tier experts. "Comrade Yi Chu, can you not hide? Come out and fight me in a battle to the death," Wei Chen challenged. While Yi Shu was chatting with Chen Guo, he immediately had Lord Grimm break out of the encirclement after killing off the assassin. Right now, Lord Grimm was hiding in a corner. "Don't you have any shame? You brought so many people and you're calling for a battle to the death?" Chen Guo couldn't help but roar back. "No one's stopping you guys from calling for help though? Speaking of which, I've been waiting all day. Have you really not called for any helpers? Your B*TCH doesn't count. With that pathetic skill, all she's good for is lying in bed and playing around with," Wei Chen called out. "I'm going to kill him." Chen Guo couldn't hold it back anymore. "Calm down," Yi Shu urged. "In any case, you're not his opponent, so why ask to be humiliated?" "Then what should I do?" Chen Guo asked. "Let me handle it," Yi Shu grinned. "You."
The King's Avatar, Chapter 513, Audio Source, WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 513. There's someone behind you. Yi Shu's shout seemed quite pathetic, but his hands continued to input commands in a steady and orderly way. He even had time to talk. His current situation was much better than it had previously been. Even so, Yi Shu was far from having the advantage. Even though he had successfully killed off an enemy assassin, he relied on the assassin killing himself. The assassin had burned most of his life by using life-risking strike. If Yi Shu couldn't finish off the minuscule amount of health remaining, he didn't deserve to play the game. Following afterwards, another flashy show started and Lord Grimm began hiding in corners again. The opponent's commander might be strong, but he didn't have that many people under his command. More importantly, Milo Ancient Ruins wasn't a leveling area. Back in Wilderness Town, Yi Shu not only had to avoid being seen by 3 guilds, but he also had to make sure he didn't aggro any monsters, since it would have made it that much more troublesome. But Milo Ancient Ruins. Yi Shu had already lit a cigarette. He was having quite an easy time playing hide and seek. If he has such a background, then is this Blue Brook Guild's doing? Chen Guo saw how Yi Shu seemed to be relaxed, so she didn't need to stay silent. It doesn't seem like it. Yi Shu shook his head. Blue Brook Guild would have brought a lot more experts. At the very least, they wouldn't have given him a random group of players, no. Then if he's not doing it for the Blue Brook Guild and there's no bounty, then what does he want? Chen Guo was puzzled. Suddenly, she heard Wei Chen shout, "Listen to me, Yi Shu. You're completely surrounded. Coming out and dying is your only path left. Logging off would be very shameful of you. Resisting would be a waste of time. Hurry up and come out. Give me that 500 yuan, so I can go eat dinner." "DMMIT, didn't I tell you that the bounty was already withdrawn? Do you really not know about it, or are you just faking it?" Yi Shu replied. "What was that? I can't hear you clearly. Speak louder," Wei Chen yelled. Yi Shu immediately shut up. Wei Chen was lying. He wanted Yi Shu to speak up, so he could figure out his position. You don't want to fight and you don't want to log off. You're hiding to stall for time. Are you really waiting for helpers to arrive? Are you forcing me to call for more people? FCK, if I call more people, that 500 won't even be enough for me to buy water. Even with the 20 people I have right now, I'd still have to pay a bit out of my own pocket for a meal." Yi Shu heard Wei Chen cursing and making a huge fuss over the 500 yuan, but Yi Shu had a hard time believing that Wei Chen didn't see the announcement that the bounty had been withdrawn. After thinking for a moment, he suddenly said to Chen Guo, "Do you have any friends in other guilds? Ask them about the bounty. The announcement was very clear. Didn't we see it already? Even if they went back on their word, it shouldn't be so quickly." Chen Guo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "No. I'm asking whether or not the guilds might have made another move internally," Yi Shu said. "What?" Chen Guo was a bit surprised, but quickly understood. She had been in the heavenly domain for so long. She wasn't familiar with any of the big names, but she still had friends in other guilds. She asked them about it and they confirmed what Yi Shu said. "You're right. The guilds all have a bounty on you. It's 500 every time you're killed. Some of the guilds even have contribution rewards," Chen Guo hurriedly told Yi Shu. "So he really is after the money." Yi Shu was speechless. "How tragic," Chen Guo commented. She could understand if he were a normal person, but according to Yi Shu, he was a god-level player with an incredible background, and yet he was leading others just for 500 yuan. It was quite tragic. How was he going to split the money with 20 people? Each person would get 25 yuan. Or was it the killer takes 300 yuan and everyone else gets 10 yuan? In either case, it was quite pitiful. That might not be the case. It's more likely he's just looking for fun. If he has free time and there's an event with 500 yuan as a reward, why not do it? Yi Shu analyzed his opponent's motive. "Ah, he's going to find me soon," Yi Shu said to Chen Guo, and noticed the enemies were beginning to close in on his hiding place, so he immediately jumped and moved out. By moving out, his location was revealed, but at least, he had taken the initiative. It was better than the enemies suddenly ambushing him and forcing him out. "Bested, running again. You really do have some skill. You'd better not log off today. Let's see how long you can run for." Wei Chen saw Lord Grim and immediately had his subordinates chase after him. "More like you'd better not run," Yi Shu retorted. "FCK, you can still talk while you're running away. You really are Yi Shu," Wei Chen yelled. The two fought back and forth while shouting at each other non-stop. Chen Guo was staring speechlessly for a long time and then suddenly realized that this was what it was like when two pro-level players fought. The trash talk never stopped. "What are you planning on doing?" Chen Guo was somewhat at a loss. Yishu didn't have any helpers he could call on. Lulan Slash and his friends weren't online. Apart from him, Yishu didn't know anyone else. He isn't waiting for me, right? Chen Guo was worried. She really hoped she could help, but if he was actually placing his hopes on her, then she would feel very pressured. My helper is almost here. WuxaWorldAudio.com. Yishu said. Who? You're not talking about me, right? Chen Guo asked. Yishu's glance at her made her want to die. If you check the system announcements, you'll know sooner or later. Yishu said. Chen Guo was puzzled. What did getting the help have to do with the system announcements? Just when she was going to ask, she realized that Yishu was busy. A huge fireball flew in front of him, cutting off Yishu's escape path. The pursuers from behind had already arrived, cornering him in a small alleyway. Wei Chen had been shouting at Yishu at how he kept on running and wasting his time, but now he had successfully found another opportunity to kill him. Yishu had nowhere to go in front or behind him. He saw a big chunk of the wall missing to the right of him and immediately had Lord Grimm run up to it. He flipped over the wall and escaped. He didn't land on the ground after jumping and continued to fly using rotor wings. SHT, he's too crafty. Hit him down for me. Wei Chen's warlock was right outside of this gap. This had clearly been a trap set by him. A thief had set several traps beneath the gap. If Lord Grimm had stepped on them, he wouldn't have any chance of escaping. However, Yishu had seen this scenario in his head and didn't land on the ground. On the ground, several gunners shot at Lord Grimm. Rotor Wings wasn't very quick and it wasn't very nimble either. However, under Yishu's control, it appeared exceptionally agile, dodging all of the incoming bullets and making the enemy mechanic watch on in astonishment. Wei Chen wasn't someone who simply ordered others around. He kept a close eye on Lord Grimm and maintained a certain distance from him. He calculated how soon Rotor Wings would end and cast a chaotic rain at the place where Lord Grimm would stop. Lord Grimm landed just where Wei Chen predicted he would land, but the 1000-chance umbrella became an actual umbrella. Lord Grimm walked straight out of the rain. Compared to other shields, the 1000-chance umbrella was more convenient at blocking moves from above too. FCK, what a despicable weapon. Wei Chen cursed. Lord Grimm had been forced into a position he wanted, but he didn't think Lord Grimm would just be able to walk out of it like that. He had a limited number of subordinates with him too. His opponent wasn't someone who could be stopped by just one or two people. Team 3, come back. He won't be going to your area. Head towards area 3958, 2564. Team 1, cut off his escape path. Team 2, circle to the left and converge with Team 4. 4 players who have high movement speed, come and see if you can circle in front of him. Wei Chen was ordering everyone in the team chat. Wei Chen gave orders, while circling to the right. His peak had passed already and he wasn't as skilled as before. Of course, against normal players, he was an exceptional expert, but in the pro scenes, he wasn't much anymore. He still had confidence in stalling for time against Lord Grimm though. After all, he had a huge level advantage. Wei Chen had his warlock hide behind a line of collapsed stone walls, while looking forward. Before, he had been chattering non-stop with Yishu, but now he remained silent. Right now, he didn't want to expose his position. He heard Yishu's voice come closer and closer and prepared to attack at any moment. He's here. Lord Grimm directly jumped over the stone wall and landed not far away from Wei Chen's warlock. Wei Chen was ready and immediately fired curse arrows to block his path. AEAD. Bind. Under Wei Chen's practiced hand, a curved ray of black light shot out from his warlock towards Lord Grimm. Lord Grimm hastily turned around in an attempt to dodge it, but the ray of black light seemed to come to life as it also turned. "Oh! Hand control!" Yishu shouted as he rolled forward. The ray of black light turned, but only hit air. Wei Chen once again had the ray of black light move downwards, while beginning to cast another spell. Hexagram Prison. From the sky to the ground, a purple and black prison of light began to form around Lord Grimm. If Lord Grimm touched the light prison, he would immediately be sealed inside the hexagram prison. "There's someone behind you," Yishu shouted. "Only a little kid would fall for that." Wei Chen ignored him. "There really is someone." Yishu was still yelling at him. "A ghost." Wei Chen continued to look down on him. "Ha ha, there really is a ghost." "A ghost blade." Yishu grinned. A blue light flashed from beneath Wei Chen's warlock and an ice boundary formed. At the same time, Chen Guo checked the system announcements and finally noticed something. System announcement: 10th server player 1-inch Ash has completed the Heavenly Domain challenge and has entered the Heavenly Domain. End chapter.
Chapter 514, You Were Already Prepared. 1-inch Ash, Chao Yifan. Despite having had very little association with the person, Chen Guo still knew who he was. Yishu didn't hide anything from those who were around him every day, including Chen Guo. Although Chao Yifan was still a nobody among pros, he was still one of the best in the game. Chen Guo immediately checked his character. As of now, 1-inch Ash was level 55. After being left way behind during the Christmas event, 1-inch Ash had not only made a comeback, but he was half a level higher than Lord Grimm now. There was nothing Yishu could do. Between levels 50 to 55, there was nothing he could do but kill monsters in the wilderness to level up, and there was no efficient way to do so. However, the regular servers had plenty of quest chains and an abundance of dungeons. As long as players were willing to spend enough time, they could level up pretty quickly during this period. This not only applied to level 50, but 55, 60, 65. All of these levels used to be the max level in the game. To make the game's content more diverse at the time, there were a large number of dungeons for players to enjoy for each max level. When the level limit was raised, those dungeons became treasure troves of experience points. Chao Yifan started his quests for Heavenly Domain while he was still leveling up. After all, being a professional player, the skill tests required in the quest posed no problem for him at all. As for the arena aspect, Chao Yifan was not Tang Ru, and so keeping a winning streak against regular players was a piece of cake. Nonetheless, with Yishu as the leadoff, Chao Yifan didn't spark off as much of a craze. His 1-inch Ash was also unlike Lord Grimm, who couldn't gain any experience after reaching level 50 in the normal server and could only focus solely on the quest for Heavenly Domain. Lord Grimm spent all of his time in the arena, raking in victories, battle after battle. It was almost impossible for people not to notice him. Chao Yifan, on the other hand, employed a much more gradual process. He saved up his victories one at a time, stretching it across a number of days, so no one noticed that he was another one who started the Heavenly Domain's quests early. Until he finished the quests, entered the Heavenly Domain and was announced by the system of his arrival did the 10th server explode in shock. Such announcements weren't that rare in Heavenly Domain, but it did surprise people for it had came from the 10th server. The highest level in the 10th server was level 58. This proved to everyone that whoever just entered the Heavenly Domain was undoubtedly a brilliant expert. The moment 1-inch Ash had stepped into the Heavenly Domain, a curious crowd had gathered. Chen Guo and Yishu were too busy at the moment to notice the system announcement. Yishu noticed through a different way soon though, because Chao Yifan sent the news to Yishu along with his greetings right after he had entered the Heavenly Domain. Yishu immediately called him over to help. F***ck. You actually called helper. Wei Chen, who had 19 helpers with him, roared righteously. Chen Guo was losing more respect for god-level players by the minute. The ice boundary's constant freeze damage immediately interrupted Wei Chen's warlock's hexagram prison. Unfortunately, 1-inch Ash's level was still too low. Under such extreme level suppression, the ice boundary's freezing effect was rendered completely ineffective. Wei Chen didn't know 1-inch ash, and so he thought that the ineffective freezing effect was nothing more than a stroke of luck for himself. After all, the chances weren't 100% to start with. He jumped out of the ice boundary frantically, swung himself around, and saw 1-inch ash's equipment. One look, he knew that he had been tricked. He was no longer a pro player who had to put all of his focus on professional matches. Indulging his days in the game, he knew all kinds of items by heart, so it was no surprise that he recognized the weapon in 1-inch ash's hand was a level 55 katana, Sword of Carnot. It used to be a very popular weapon, but its fame had faded away with the level 55 level limit. Even nostalgists wouldn't bring such a weapon to an important PK match. As the thought raced through his mind, Wei Chen clicked on 1-inch ash, whose level of 55 displayed truthfully in front of him. With such as low level, Wei Chen knew the limit of the character's performance even without checking out the character's equipment. "This is your long-awaited helper?" Wei Chen laughed. Suddenly, a glimmering flash shot into his view. The Sword of Carnot was glinting right in front of him. Coming from a ghostblade, the flash gleamed with a haunting wickedness. "Whoa, not bad," Wei Chen exclaimed, stumbling to dodge the blow. His warlock raised his staff the following second, trying to cast another spell. Unfortunately, it was interrupted by the following strike from 1-inch ash. Ghostblade and warlocks both used cloth armor, but they had completely different attack power when it came to close-range combat. Even with weak armor, ghostblades were still considered swordsmen. As for warlocks, they were the same as elementalists, possessing no martial skills whatsoever. Trapped in such a tiny space by 1-inch ash, Wei Chen was actually in a pretty dire situation. Slow down. Under 1-inch ash's constant slashing assault, Wei Chen's warlock's left and right dodging was rather unsightly. Undignified words rolled out of his mouth ceaselessly. Even if Wei Chen started begging for mercy, no one would find it strange. However, Wei Chen was not undignified to such extreme degrees. When he deemed his endless stream of useless words was unable to ease the ferocity of his enemies' attacks, his final cry was, "Help me! Yifan, don't let your guard down. This guy will do anything to achieve his goal. He doesn't have any sense of shame. Hurry up and chop him down." The faster the better, Yishu called out to stop Wei Chen's distracting noise. He didn't go over to help 1-inch ash out because some of Wei Chen's guys had just arrived. Killing Wei Chen was of utmost importance. Unfortunately, Yishu and Chao Yifan's characters' levels were too low to kill a level 70 character in such a short span of time. Consequently, the priority became stopping Wei Chen's people from regrouping with their leader. Yishu had no idea where this group of people came from, but he did know that they were just a group of nobodies. Without Wei Chen's commands, despite Lord Grimm's low level, Yishu was confident that he could defeat each one of them one by one. *T. Yichu, you shameless scum. I left the scene a long time ago, so I'm not going to talk about my past glory, but speaking of no sense of shame, why don't you introduce yourself? Stop framing good people. Yishu didn't pay a single shred of attention to Wei Chen's honorable speech. More importantly, the ghostblade in front of him wasn't distracted by his speech neither. Instead, his attacks only became more fierce because of Yishu's "hurry up. Little brother, pretty nice moves you got there. Which team are you from?" Although Wei Chen retired many years before, he still played glory and his judgment was still very sharp. Chao Yifan's cautious and organized style exposed his professional background clearly in Wei Chen's eyes. No matter how fierce a regular player's performance was, some wild habits would always be mixed in. This style was unavoidable for the older generation of professional players like Wei Chen and Yishu. After all, they all entered the professional scene after playing the game on their own for a very long time. Some of the latecomers were able to learn from the earlier generation's experience, and thus avoided a lot of mistakes and wiped away some of the bad habits from the chaotic gaming styles back in the day. Chao Yifan's performance bared such marks. This was how Wei Chen was able to recognize the boy in front of him was not only professional, but of a younger generation as well, hence the source of the title, Little Brother. Chao Yifan was an honest child. In addition, he figured the person knew Yishu well from the way the twos conversed, even though he didn't quite understand their relationship. In the end, he replied truthfully, "Tiny Herb." "Oh, Tiny Herb. It's a good team." Speaking of Tiny Herb, I have some personal connections with your team leader. Your skills are pretty good. I can talk to him later and see if he'll let you play a starting position. It's the end of the season anyways. Tiny Herb's general situation is already set. It's such a small chance to let the youngsters shine. I am pretty sure I can do at least that much. Wei Chen gave a reasonable response. You're not bad. All you need is an opportunity to shine. Quote. Opportunity. Starting position. To a pro player, these were no words more attractive than those. If it were the Chao Yifan from a week before the All-Star, if someone promised such things to him, he would probably be on the floor, thanking them for the offer with excitement. But after he screwed up that rookie challenge and thought everything over, with Yishu's help, he finally came to a realization. Talking about opportunities, wasn't the rookie challenge an opportunity? Yet he was unable to seize that opportunity. No opportunity could be understood as bad luck. Being unable to seize an opportunity, should this be counted as bad luck as well? At least Chao Yifan knew that he wouldn't do that. He couldn't use that opportunity because his level of skill wasn't good enough, that's all. During recent times, he was no longer restless. He would not try his hand at another opportunity before he knew that he was skilled enough for another one. Chao Yifan could now laugh off the offer that was able to move him greatly in the past. He could even tell Wei Chen sincerely, sorry, I'm not ready to take that opportunity. No, Wei Chen sounded much more certain than Chao Yifan. The you from the past might not be ready, but you're different now. You're completely prepared now. Delivering such a passionate speech, Wei Chen even forgot to move his character. His poor warlock just stood there stupidly like a sandbag as 1-inch ash splashed him twice in a roll. Such honesty and compassion made Chao Yifan slight embarrassed. Right then Wei Chen cried out, your time has come. Fight for it, Zhou Yebai. Chao Yifan was puzzled, I'm not Zhou Yebai. What are you talking about? If you're not Zhou Yebai, who could you possibly be? Ha 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 ha, Yishu's laughter resounded from the other side, very impressive. To be more convincing, you even abandoned moving. You used 2 strikes just to get a name out. Rip. You've got the person wrong, bro. Really? Who are you then? Wei Chen asked. I'm Chao Yifan. Chao Yifan? Wei Chen mumbled. He stole a glance at the list of Tiny Herb's members that he had just pulled up and added, isn't Chao Yifan an assassin? Enough already. Are you still trying to trick him? Yifan, don't listen to his nonsense. He has no connection with your team leader. He doesn't even know that Tiny Herb's gate now opens from the south side, Yishu retorted. D*MMIT. Who says I don't know that? I just met with your team leader for a meal just a few days ago, Wei Chen protested. Our Tiny Herb's has gate never opened on the south side, Chao Yifan added weakly. F***CKU. I told you that scum is worse than I am. I'm done with you, Wei Chen roared and charged towards Lord Grimm recklessly. A spell manifested in the warlock's hand. Chao Yifan was pretty confused by the exchange. He rushed forward, trying to stop Wei Chen, but only heard a warning cry from Yishu, watch out. With a flicker of his hand, the warlock threw a binding spell behind himself. Chapter 515, This is an ultimate. All of this happened in under a minute. The guy, who just said, your time has come, in a very serious voice, might have gotten his name wrong, but Chao Yifan still felt gratitude for his words. However, in the next instant, a dirty sneak attack suddenly came at him. Even though Yishu shouted for him to be careful, it was too late for Chao Yifan. The two were only inches apart from each other. Chao Yifan hadn't seen Wei Chen mutter any spells. By the time he saw the spell coming at him, a black of ray light shot out from the warlock's hands and instantly wrapped around 1-inch ash. Sigh, young people. Yishu and Wei Chen both spoke in unison. Shameless, too shameless, Chen Guo nearly jumped up in anger. On the other hand, Qia Yifan felt very embarrassed upon hearing the two sigh at him. He was usually a cautious and suspecting person. Whenever something bad happened, he would never denounce the opponent and instead look for how he could improve. As a result, he regretted how he hadn't been careful enough. He felt like the two sighing wasn't wrong. He was too young and too inexperienced. At this point, struggling was useless. The bind spell didn't do any damage, but it stopped the target from moving. It stopped the affected target's movement for 5 seconds, which was enough to do many things. Wei Chen seized this opportunity and he quickly cast another spell. Another ray of black light shot out from his hands and bored into 1-inch Ash's body. This ray of black light didn't do any damage, but when the warlock lifted his hands, 1-inch Ash also lifted his hands and floated into the air. Control spell. Control spell was a warlock skill, which allowed the user to control whatever the black light hit, but continually consume the mana of the user. The heavier the target was, the greater the mana consumption. If the target was a living thing, like a player, mana would be consumed even faster. It sounded like a fun skill to use that allowed the user to make a fool out of the target, but in reality, the skill was very easy to break out of. You wanted to control the target for a few minutes? Impossible. You might not even be able to for a few seconds because the spell could be broken with an attack. As a result, this skill was mainly used to put the target in an unfavorable position or stop the target from moving. Wei Chen used this opportunity to send 1-inch Ash into the air and then prepared to throw him into a wall. While in midair, Qiao Yifan could already see the crowd of enemies waiting by the wall. Being tossed into them would be like a lamb entering a tiger's den. "Do you think I don't exist?" Yi Shu shouted. Lord Grim raised his sword and slashed downwards. "Haha, I know you're there," Wei Che laughed. He hastily retracted the ray of black of light and 1-inch Ash fell to the ground. He immediately moved his warlock out of Lord Grim's attack range. But during this small amount of time, he was able to give his allies enough time to arrive. A blade master and striker leapt up together and jumped over the short wall. Lord Grim immediately turned around after completing the slash. He shot out a sword wind using sword draw and sent the striker tumbling back over. However, Yi Shu couldn't reach the blade master. These two hadn't jumped over together. The two had some distance between them, one after the other. The gap between them made it so that Yi Shu had no way of handling both at once. On the other side, 1-inch Ash landed on the ground at around the same time as the blade master. "Ice boundary," Yi Shu shouted. Qiao Yifan didn't dare to be slow and immediately cast an ice boundary. "Interrupt him." Wei Chen didn't react slowly either and immediately gave an order. The blade master listened and sent a sword wind at 1-inch Ash using sword draw. Qiao Yifan saw how fast the attack was coming at him and knew he wouldn't have enough time to finish casting. Helplessly, he cancelled the spell and dodged the attack. Even so, the light of a boundary appeared. It was a sword boundary. Slash. Yi Shu ordered. 1-inch Ash immediately countered with a moonlight slash after dodging the sword draw. The timing was perfect. The blade master was still in the middle of the sword draw animation and couldn't dodge the moonlight slash. Full moonlight slash. Ghost slash. In one breath, 1-inch Ash had completed 2 slashes, sending the blade master directly at Lord Grim. Lord Grim stepped forward. He grabbed the blade master and threw him towards Wei Chen's warlock. Wei Chen was in the middle of casting a spell similar to when Qiao Yifan had attempted to cast an ice boundary. He had no choice but to cancel his spell in order to dodge. "Cast every single boundary," Yi Shu yelled and shot through the air, throwing another guy who was jumping over the wall back to the other side. Wei Chen roared in anger, "Why are you all lining up one by one to get over? Just get over all at once." It hadn't been easy getting a blade master to help him, so his opponents wouldn't be able to gang up on him 1 versus 2, but after so long, a second helper hadn't been able to get over the wall. The two sides were only separated by a wall, so the players on the other side of Wei Chen could hear his voice loud and clear. They gathered below the wall and jumped up together all at once. Then, a blue light appeared from below the wall. A circle was drawn on the ground. The blue light rose into the air and the incoming players were thrown into the sky via the rising emblem. F***CK. Wei Chen cursed, but he couldn't do anything about it. Under Lord Grim's protection, 1-inch Ash had already successfully cast a flame boundary. Wei Chen was in the middle of it. It was already impressive for him to be able to avoid the damage from the flames. Where would he find time to cast a spell? The Blade Master didn't need to be talked about. In front of pro players, the only thing he could do was attract damage. Under an Aoi flame boundary, the Blade Master didn't even have the ability to dodge the flames rising from the ground and was burned from head to toe. Luckily, the enemy was under-leveled and the damage taken wasn't too heavy. All of their helpers were launched into the air by Lord Grim's rising emblem. They looked like a complete mess in the air, making Wei Chen want to cry. When they fell, some of them successfully quick recovered, while some of them failed. Some of the ones who succeeded were knocked to the ground by those who had failed. Lord Grim swept them away by using an earthquake sword. The ones who had managed to stand were knocked to the ground, while everyone else was sent into the ghost boundary. Falling light blade, back throw. The damage wasn't scary, but the most annoying part was the effects. Wei Chen's subordinates were stacked on top of each other and couldn't escape from it. It made Wei Chen want to scratch Lord Grim to death. Meanwhile, Wan and Jash continued to pile ghost boundaries one on top of the other. Even though the boundaries were low-leveled, with so many boundaries layered over each other, they would certainly have an effect. How interesting. With your levels, trying to kill us is too hard. Wei Chen's group was in a sorry state, but he wasn't worried. Lord Grim's and Wan and Jash's level disadvantage could be fatal. Even though they had controlled the situation, their damage output wouldn't be enough to turn the tides of battle to victory. If they had been 2 level 70 characters, Wei Chen would have surrendered long ago. Right when he finished saying this, he heard a loud female voice shout, "Eat a bullet, you immoral B*****starred." Boom! How was that a bullet? It was a gigantic pillar of light. A launcher's satellite beam descended from the skies and crashed directly at them. In that instant, the crowd was completely immersed in deadly light. When the pillars of light split, those who hadn't been immersed in the light were swept into it. Between the two walls was a small alley, leaving them nowhere to run. This skill didn't come from a level 50 character. This time, it was from a true level 70 character. There wasn't any level suppression due to the gap in levels. In addition, satellite beam was an ultimate. F***CK, why did this B***TCH also come? Wei Chen heard the female voice and responded in a very impolite manner because he knew that this time, the situation had turned bad. Don't look at how the enemies only had 3 players. Lord Grim and Wan and Jash had strong control over the situation. They grouped them up like NPC mobs. Now, a level 70 character had arrived. The character was a high burst launcher 2 with a sword boundary increasing her strength. In addition, the enemy's plague boundary decreased their defense. When the satellite beam descended, their health bars dropped like waterfalls. When the satellite beam finished, she followed up with a grenade. Another explosion took another chunk off their health bars. She fired a stinger, showering them with missiles for another AoE attack. This was all with the persistent damage from the ghost boundaries and Lord Grim adding to the fire. Wei Chen focused on avoiding the attacks, while watching the names on his team list turn gray. There was nothing he could do. Where'd that immoral one go? Chen Guo's chasing haze stood on top of a wall looking down mightily. Right now, she was a killing machine. She swept across the bloody field, but didn't see any signs of that warlock. Did he die already? Chen Guo asked. She had chasing haze shoot at the ground. With Wan and Jash and Lord Grim blocking the paths of the normal players, the players had no way of escaping. The field had turned into an execution ground. There was nowhere to run or hide. They could only wait for their deaths. He didn't die. He got over the wall and ran. Yi Shu noticed Wei Chen's movements and even shot at him. Unfortunately, he hadn't been able to stop him. He has no loyalty. He really is immoral. Chen Guo was dumbstruck. Could the guy have actually left his comrades to die, just so he could escape?